Nine Sols is intense. It's got some of the best and smoothest flowing combat in the Metroidvania genre, thanks to its heavy use of in-depth parrying mechanics. Yet its platforming and overall progression are nothing to scoff at either. Even the story kept me engaged all throughout. That's my personal game of the year from 2024, and when you just can't get enough of a game, you can always look to speedrunning. And Nine Sols speedrunning makes for an incredible mix of complex mechanics, challenging combat, and game-breaking glitches. Today I want to break down the run in technical detail while showing you the insanity and unexpected obstacles that arise when you pick a game like this apart completely. As many speedruns do, the Nine Sols community runs various categories. We'll be looking at the any % restricted speedrun, the current most competitive category, which keeps the majority of interesting skips while playing on the game's true difficulty. This is how Nine Sols is conquered in just 1 hour. The run starts just after you break out of the Apeman village. As you start, your character named Yi can jump, slash, parry, and dash. You can only dash as long as you're on the ground, and successfully parrying an attack gives you what's called a chi charge. This charge can be spent to use Yi's talisman attack, which acts like a dash, and when it hits an enemy, you can detonate it for significant damage. Of course, speedrunning is all about moving fast, and to do that is to get as many dashes as possible. Dashes do have a significant cooldown, but this cooldown is cancelled after Yi lands from being airborne, so the strat is to dash and do the shortest jump the game will let you, then dashing again and repeating. Most regular enemies are ignored as defeating them is usually not worth your effort. However, these early archer enemies can be taken down with just a single triple slash combo. Notably, Nine Sols does have a leveling and skill point system which will come into play much later. For now though, that means some optional enemies are defeated on the way. There's just one required fight until the end of the Apeman Facility, which speedrunners quickly deal with by rushing the archer and trying to hit the two melee enemies at the same time. At the end of the Apeman Facility stands Baek, your first mini-boss encounter. Obviously, parry timing is important as parrying an attack perfectly gives you no damage, while imperfect timing leaves you with red bar damage that slowly regenerates if you don't get hit. You'll see that runners jump after performing a triple slash. This is a small but significant optimization that allows you to chain into your next triple slash quicker. The name of the game is damage uptime. If there's a window for it, you want to be doing damage. Baek also has a stronger jumping attack that is engulfed in red and black flame. This is called a Crimson attack. Many enemies can use these, and Crimson attacks cannot currently be parried, so you avoid them by moving out of range or by using the invincibility from a dash. Once Baek goes down, you get this cinematic slow motion animation. This can actually be cancelled if you finish the fight with a talisman or the last hit of a triple slash combo, as this enables Yi to jump, which gives back control to the player. Then slashing will actually remove the slow motion effect, and using this you can enter the elevator to the next area right away. The run continues with a few cutscenes. Then we obtain the Mystic Nymph. Before using it, we quit to the menu screen to be placed back at the left side of this room and skip opening the door. The Nymph allows Yi to hack and unlock these special hacking points from a distance, and it's required to advance to the next part of the game. We can now move down to the power reservoir. So far, the route has been as you might expect, but that's going to change rapidly. Nine Sols makes it seem like you have to collect these so-called soul seals by defeating the main bosses, but in reality, it never actually checks for this. Instead, as you progress by obtaining these soul seals, you unlock abilities that make it possible to even get to the final area. But speedrunners have more than just these predetermined abilities in the form of glitches, and we're going to explore a major one now. Starting the power reservoir, you take an elevator where you're ambushed by enemies. Not a big challenge, but we'll actually keep one of these small enemies we'll call Roombas alive. As the elevator reaches the bottom, we get the Roomba to follow us beyond the exit. We lure it down this ledge, and just before it drops on Yi's head, we press down to grab the rope below the platform, letting the Roomba hit us and cancelling that rope grabbing animation. An important switch is now flipped in the game's memory, also known as a variable. As Yi starts grabbing the rope, the game makes a note. Is the player on a rope? True. It can then use this variable to determine the actions that Yi is able to do, like climbing up and down the rope. And once you exit the rope's hitbox, it'll update its memory, and rope equals false. However, the Roomba hit Yi before he actually properly climbed down, so the rope variable is set to true, but we're already outside of the rope's hitbox. This is something that can only be done by dropping down onto the rope from above. And that all means that unless we touch the rope again, The game believes that we should be able to do the actions that come with climbing one. But the game makes another note in its memory, remembering where Yi grabbed the rope. But it only remembers where he grabbed it horizontally, so Yi can still move up and down along that rope. But these facts can be abused. Welcome to rope storage. After setting the rope variable to true, in other terms, storing it, we move over to the left and drop through this platform. We then press up, and since the game thinks we're still on a rope, it starts the climbing animation at the horizontal position of the stored rope. But because we're now below it and the game only remembers where to put us horizontally, we teleport into the room underneath and skip having to go around normally. This instance of rope storage only saves about 10 seconds, but it's going to be crucial soon enough. Now we're met with a root node. These are similar to Dark Souls bonfires, acting as a checkpoint if you die and replenishing your healing pipes. They also offer a place to do your skill tree upgrades and equip jades if you have them. But some root nodes are places where you learn new abilities, and this is one of those. Here, you unlock the Tai Chi kick. This is an upgrade to your air parry, allowing you to bounce off of these green orbs. It's also significant in combat, as future enemies will do crimson attacks where they also glow green. These green glowing moves can be interrupted by jumping on the enemy with a Tai Chi kick, which also deals damage to them. There's a small optimization in the tutorial itself, where if you slash the enemy from behind as soon as it starts, you can skip having to do just one of the 3 required Tai Chi kicks. This is a good time to clarify that while your regular dash can't be done airborne, the talisman attack can be done in the air and acts similarly, but it uses a chi charge. There actually is an upgrade that allows you to truly air dash, and getting that is our next goal. Normally you'd get it after unlocking the charge attack near the second main boss to open the path to the factory, then heading down to the factory underground. But having none of that, we're headed for an early air dash. After finishing the Tai Chi kick tutorial, we head further down and come up on our next major glitch, this being ledge storage. Similar to rope storage, the game has a variable to track if Yi is hanging off of a ledge. And this can also be kept despite no longer being on a ledge. All it takes is to hang off a ledge, perform a slash and interrupt it in one of a few different ways. For now, we slash and perform a talisman dash. This seems to work because the variable to track if Yi is on a ledge and Yi's actual state, or rather what action he's in, are 2 different things. For example, you'll see that when you slash while on a ledge, Yi's state becomes the regular attack state. Then if the separate ledge variable is still true by the end of this attack, Yi transitions back into the grab ledge state. If you leave the ledge from the grab ledge state, that separate ledge variable gets set back to false. But if you exit the ledge from the attack state, the game never updates the ledge variable, and that's what makes ledge storage work. And ledge storage gets crazy, but it's important to mention that losing ledge storage is quite easy. Getting hit, as well as completing a parry or slash animation, will make the game update the ledge variable, though cancelling those animations is fine. This area loops back around to where we fought Bai Chang, who actually dropped a jade that we can equip. We pick it up on the way, but I'll talk more about it later. Finally, it's time to actually use that ledge storage. Watch this. That's a parry hover, and it allows us to cross this gap without waiting for the moving blocks. This works because of some strangeness with Yi's jump and when gravity is actually applied. At the start of a jump, Yi is unaffected by gravity, specifically while he's less than 36 units above the ground, which is just a small window. This is likely programmed to make even the shortest jump inputs give some height, and this can be abused. Cancelling your jump while you're unaffected by gravity is usually handled well and gravity gets reapplied properly. But there are edge cases that were not considered, and one of those edge cases is when your jump is cancelled by a parry performed from a ledge. And while we're not actually hanging off the ledge, we still have our ledge storage from earlier. This makes it so when you input an air parry, the game thinks that this should become a ledge parry. So we start our jump, and for a split second, Yi is unaffected by gravity. We interrupt this jump with a ledge parry thanks to ledge storage. Now, because the game doesn't have logic to apply gravity in this case, we float. And we can drift as we please as long as we keep holding jump, because releasing jump will once again apply gravity, and the same goes for any expected ways to cancel a jump. But ledge storage is versatile, and you'll be seeing a lot of different applications for it soon. For now, we continue on taking the bottom path through the Apeman Facility, though we make a small detour to pick up a Dao fruit. These are rare collectibles that give Yi's slashes and talismans a 3% damage bonus, but much more importantly, you also get a full skill point. This area actually connects to the factory underground where the air dash can be unlocked. However, this path is intended to be opened from the other side. No problem, we lure one of these drone enemies with us, jumping into it to make it attack earlier and making it follow faster. Then we arrive at a rope. It's another rope storage. We let the drone hit us as we climb down onto the rope and instantly do a talisman dash to prevent falling down. We wait for one more attack to parry and get our chi charge back. Then we jump and instantly activate the rope storage. We're now teleported above the rope and are still able to climb up and down, so we use this to climb towards the top of the room. Since we jumped into activating rope storage, we actually keep a tiny bit of momentum into our jump off of the rope, which we do and quickly spam some slashes, as these actually give you just a slight bit more distance, barely making it up. We move and use up that chi charge we got to cross this gap, and then we get transported to the factory underground. A bit of enemy dodging and movement later and we arrive at another route node offering us an upgrade, the air dash. This is a massive movement upgrade that can still be chained with talisman dashes to get even more distance. With the Tai Chi kick and the air dash obtained, we're done with prep work and can start making our way over to get our prerequisite for beating the game. To get it, we'll need to beat two main bosses, G in the Grotto of Scriptures and Fushi in the Empyrean District. A big step in difficulty, as these two main bosses are normally the last ones you fight before the final boss. Now we use the route node to fast travel back to the main hub and go east. Being able to air dash is also a big buff to our overall movement speed, as our main method is now to jump, dash, then land. Landing resets the dash, so we repeat this over and over, with dashing as low to the ground as possible being optimal to start your next dash ASAP. You can also add in an air parry just before landing for a very tiny speed boost, but I really do mean tiny, and getting a grounded parry by accident will slow you down significantly instead, so that method is debatable. Using the Tai Chi kick, we can unlock the path to the right, and after a bit of movement, we make it to the building connecting to the Sky Tower. Normally you'd climb up here using the double jump ability, which is unlocked after beating the 5th main boss. Unfortunately, that would also require beating the main bosses before it, which is much too slow. Instead, we'll just make our own double jump. We grab a ledge, slash, and cancel it with an air dash, activating ledge storage. Now at the top, we jump, slash, and hold up. Because we just completed a slash, the game is choosing which state Yi should go to next. It evaluates many things, including whether we're hanging off the ledge and if we're holding up. Because we have ledge storage, both of these are true, and the game decides that we should get the vaulting animation for climbing up a ledge, effectively acting as the double jump that we need. Now we enter the Sky Tower, a platforming section meant to challenge you with the movement abilities you acquire through your journey. We once again get ledge storage and use it to vault for extra height, then continue climbing. Here's a cool optimization with a new trick as we jump into this laser and dash the instant we hit it. Normally hitting a hazard like a laser would set you back to where you last stood on safe ground, but the dash prevented this from happening. Instead, we keep the invincibility you get after hitting the laser while still being able to move, which we can then use to jump through the laser entirely. And by adding on the invincibility frames from another dash, we can climb up to the ledge above. We follow this up by getting ledge storage one more time and using this to vault up once more. Now we get a glitch exclusive to the Sky Tower, as it requires some extremely specific circumstances to be activated. We fall down and dash under the grapple point. We aim to grapple into the laser at an angle that causes the knockback to push us into this green wall run wall as the screen fades out. A precise set of inputs that activates what we call low gravity, extending Yi's jump significantly and also adding a bunch of upwards momentum to the air dash and talisman dash. This happens because grappling directly into both the green wall and the laser at the same time causes a complicated set of player state changes, and that ultimately allows Yi to keep the upwards momentum gained from the wall run state. Using the low gravity glitch, we can scale most of the rest of the Sky Tower until we lose it by ledge grabbing a platform near the top. We then grab the Dao fruit at the top and open the way to access this root node. Here we finally equip the jade we got from Bai Chang. This is the Stasis Jade, which increases the stun duration on enemies when Yi attaches a talisman to them. This still isn't that relevant, and for bosses it's only a 0.05 second stun increase, but it will be a little more useful towards the end of the run. We've also collected 3 skill points, 2 from Dao Fruits and 1 from defeating enemies, which we use to get an extra max chi charge and unlock the Skull Kick ability. This is just an aerial attack that allows you to get a slight bounce off of an enemy. We can already put this to good use as we travel right through the Empyrean District passages where we Skull Kick off of this enemy to get some extra height and reach the platform. We then lure this next enemy over towards this rope and use it to activate rope storage, which we instantly use to climb towards the top of this room and hang onto the rails to then advance through the rest of this zone. On the way, we quickly grab ledge storage before we take the platform leading to the Grotto of Scriptures. Now it's time to push the limits of our glitch moveset as we plan to skip the majority of the grotto and head straight for the boss. To do this, we want to use this rope where we enter to activate rope storage, which we can later use to teleport back to the left side once we have enough height. The issue is that right after this rope, there are a couple more ropes that can't be dropped down on, and I have to stress that if we touch any rope's hitbox, we lose whatever rope storage we had, so for this route to work, we need to get creative. First, we use our ledge storage to vault to this rope and cross over the spikes. We quickly deal with the flying sword enemy and head back again. Something important happened, and that was that we actually properly touched solid ground on the right. You see, the game tracks where you last touched quote-unquote safe ground to know where it can return you to if you were to fall down a pit, hit certain spikes, a laser, or other hazards. So now that spot on the right is remembered and we don't want it to update. To avoid our so-called safe spot from updating, we need to avoid ground that the game considers safe. So we jump back across the ropes and land on these breakable floors. Since these disappear after landing on them, they aren't considered safe ground. During this, we're luring over the remaining enemy, and once it gets close enough, we talisman dash left, past the platform, drop until we can dash right onto the rope, and climb up. While this does technically put us on safe ground, touching it by means of climbing up a rope doesn't update your safe spot as long as you don't move any further. Now we use the enemy attack to obtain rope storage and quickly cancel with a dash, which still doesn't update our safe spot for reasons I'll explain later. Now we jump into the spikes, which respawns us towards the right, past the other ropes, while still having rope storage from that first rope. Finally, we can advance to the right, fall down this pit to take the door at the bottom, which puts us on a higher layer of the grotto. We go left to drop down just a little and activate rope storage. Only our horizontal position changes, and all this combined gives us access to the final part of the grotto. We still need to do just a little more as we dash past these enemies and make our way upward. We then dash low to this flying enemy to ensure it aggroes onto us, and we quickly make our way up left. For this section, we need to be a little clever while manipulating the enemies to get them to do what we want, and if we move properly, the flying enemy will teleport near the ledge above us. Then we avoid this purple guy as we wait for the flying enemy to throw out his circle attack, after which we can finally skull kick off of him, which gives us just enough height to dash to the ledge above. As an important note, we've been taking intentional damage while doing rope storage and also passing a lot of enemies. Yet in this speedrun, we don't get a single health upgrade, nor do we collect extra healing pipes. So the margin for error will only keep getting smaller. You could go out of your way to unlock a root node now as a safety strat, but high level runners will head straight towards the boss instead. This is G. While he generally isn't considered one of the harder bosses, you do usually fight him with a health bar twice the size and significantly more heals. We also have a severe lack of damage dealing upgrades, so we're in for a long fight without much room for error. As we're all about going fast, the key is to do as much damage between G's attacks as possible. This is a very air-based fight, and our basic combo of choice is to go airborne, slash once, skull kick for an extra attack and more height, then finish the aerial combo. At certain intervals, G will circle himself with 3 icons. You can choose the next attack by air parrying a specific one. Most of these attacks are honestly fine, but there's one that just throws down a healing flask instead, which is great for safety and consistency. G's attacks revolve around these floating swords which we can parry between our aerial combos. Often after parrying these attacks, we get a small window to retaliate. The parries give us chi charges, so we get to do plenty of talisman attacks, which are now stronger as we have 2 max chi charges. The talisman can also extend our damage window if we use it before G would teleport away, as it delays his teleport a little longer. The fight is fairly straightforward and most attacks can be dealt with systematically, but in a run, you'd rather not see this Crimson Ring attack, as the way to dodge it is to dash directly through it, which can cost you some damage opportunities and make for some awkward situations. We keep up this rhythm until we clear Phase 1. G's second and final phase always starts off with this large black hole attack that pulls in a crimson ring before he sends out swords in all directions that finally come back his way. Yet with the right strategy, this instead turns into a big damage window. We do a few hits before starting an air combo, making sure to skull kick for maximum height before we time a dash through the crimson ring. We drift back and space out attacks to stay airborne just a little longer until the swords come, which we can parry in between attacks to keep our height. We talisman once and dash back towards the boss, then the swords return, which we can parry while keeping up the attacks. Another note here is that we can normally only do our aerial combo once before landing, but dashing, attaching a talisman, or parrying an attack in the air will reset it too, making this whole sequence possible. Other than that, and a relatively easy to deal with slam attack, the final phase doesn't change too much, but you still can't get careless. After over 4 minutes, G goes down and we'll try to skip the lengthy post-fight cutscene. The instant before the cutscene starts, the game will save, and if we manage to pause at this exact moment, we can return to the main menu and load back in to skip this entire cutscene. This used to be a very precise pause timing, but over the course of making this video, there was actually a new discovery here. Now runners open the menu the instant G goes down, then hit return to title, but back out of the menu before the confirmation pop-up fully appears. We then wait a little longer until just before the cutscene would start and open the pause menu again. Backing out before the previous confirmation menu appeared actually stored it for the next time we pause, making it so when we hit continue on this pause menu, it still opens the return to title confirmation. Finally, if we actually hit confirm here, it seems that both the continue and the return to title actions play at the same time, meaning that the game runs unpaused during this short fade out. And that pre-cutscene save triggers during that short fade out window, meaning we automatically quit out right after and can skip the cutscene with relatively generous timing. With all that, we can collect G's hair and go for the final requirement. We now head left, which connects to the upper part of the Empyrean District passages. We want to reach the elevator here, but normally you'd access it from the complete opposite side and you'd fight the minor mini-boss. So we'll have to get a little bit creative yet again. At the bottom of this room is a rope that's horizontally located beyond the wall that we need to pass. So we want to get rope storage down there, get back up, and activate it to teleport past the wall. The trouble is that the way down is one way only. So to get back up, we will once again manipulate our respawn point just like we did for the grotto rope storage. Our safe spot is set at the top and we drop down. Now it's worth mentioning that the very edges of floors aren't considered safe ground. So we land on the edge, jump, talisman, dash, then skull kick off of the enemy to land on the opposite edge. We descend through the laser, land on another edge and take the rail down. Next we have another laser section. Most of the ground here is specifically marked as unsafe, which makes sense considering the lasers. So we swiftly make our way through here and land on the far left of this platform. Though it's connected to a wall, this is still the very edge of a floor, so it's unsafe. We drop an inch close enough to this button to stay unsafe. We hit the right edge to reset our dash, fall down, and skull kick off of this enemy. This green platform is also unsafe, so we use it to jump to the very left edge, which we can then fall through to grab the rope. We climb the rope and wait for the enemy to hit us to get rope storage, then we jump into the pit to respawn back at the top. Now we activate our rope storage and it teleports Yi right past the wall. That was minor skip, and we now head towards the elevator. Though the elevator is actually blocked by this poison water. However, as you know, Yi's dash grants him invincibility, and at the end of the dash there's a very short window where you can start your next action while still being invincible. So we dash into the poison water, and if we time our interaction with the elevator just right, we can get in before the water gets a chance to put us back. Now we're in the Empyrean living area. Our goal is the very left exit, but this is blocked, so we have no choice but to approach from the top. We quickly grab ledge storage on the way before heading as far right as we can. Here, there are samurai enemies that ambush you from the background. If we're lucky, we can use one of these guys for our next skip. To do so is quite random, as he needs to chain 2 of these fast sideways slashes. These slashes freeze the samurai if we dash far enough away, which allows us to drag them further than they should be able to go normally. If we get both sideways slashes, then his next attack is guaranteed to be the overhead combo. Then we air parry his attack right next to the wall with our ledge storage active. Now we've performed one of various ways to achieve what's called a wall cling. This puts Yi in a true ledge grab state despite not actually hanging off a ledge. As long as we're touching the wall in this state, we won't actually decelerate if we were to get upward momentum, which we get by doing a skull kick off of the samurai. Though on its own, this action would cancel our wall cling. Instead, we cancel a slash into a skull kick back into a slash to quickly reapply the wall cling. And that's a wall slide. The odds of the samurai cooperating are small though, so if he does the wrong attacks, you can do a slower strat instead, which is done by jumping and slashing while facing away from the wall, then drifting towards it at the very start of your slash, so it doesn't turn you around. Because you had ledge storage, this also puts you in a wall cling state, while already having some upward momentum from the jump itself, though it's not nearly as fast as getting the speed from a successful skull kick. Once we're high enough, we can jump off of the wall and combine slashes with a talisman dash and a regular dash to make it to this ledge. Or even better, we go from slightly lower by reactivating our ledge storage from the wall cling and using that ledge storage to refresh our air dash. This works because while we're in a wall cling, Yi's state is effectively the same as hanging off of a normal ledge. So just like a normal ledge, it can be used to activate ledge storage. Up here, we pick up another Dao fruit and head left, before using the Mystic Nymph to lower this rope. And you guessed it, we use rope storage, and this time, we use it purely for height. Since this room doesn't have a physical ceiling, we can continue climbing for ages until we get enough height to jump onto this giant building, which we would otherwise have to go under and be forced to watch a long cutscene. We can speed up this climb by jumping and re-grabbing the stored rope over and over, done by jumping off the rope while holding diagonally up. We pick up ledge storage on the way as we finally pass through the left exit. Here we're met with this elevator where you're ambushed by waves of enemies. This would be a rather slow fight with how underleveled we are, so instead we use our ledge storage to activate a parry float, which if used to hover into a wall is another way of activating a wall cling. And that means we can now do a wall slide. So as soon as the first enemy pulls up, we slash, skull kick, and slash. But as it turns out, the camera is locked during this section, so this next part is blind. For now, I'll unlock the camera to show you what's actually going on. The wall isn't continuous to the top, and if we slide past the next ledge, we lose our wall cling. However, if we start a slash before detaching from the wall and reattach before the slash ends, we can reapply the wall cling and continue the wall slide. There would be a problem if the gap was as big as it looks, but in this state where the elevator fight isn't completed, part of this gap is covered by an invisible wall, helping us make it all the way up. After that, it's a short stroll left to reach another root node, which we can rest at to reset the camera. So in a run, it would look more like this, and you'd have to do your inputs off of memory. Since we're using the root node to reset the camera anyway, this is a great time to do more upgrades. We get Shadow Strike. This increases the damage when sneak attacking an enemy, which isn't very relevant for this run, but what we're really after is the extra chi charge that's next in the skill tree. Now we use the Mystic Nymph to unlock the path above, before looping up around the right, and there we reach the next main boss. Fushi is often a struggle for casual players as the fight can quickly start to feel hectic. For speedrunners, this story is a little different, as his moves aren't hard to deal with once you know what to look out for. Phase 2 especially might look a little different than you remember. But with Yi's low maxed health, in a speedrun there is significant risk of getting one-shot by Fushi's strong attacks, so mistakes can be very punishing. Since we're now at 3 max chi charges, the talisman has become an even more important part of our damage output. While G had more punish windows at the end of his moves, with Fushi the focus is much more on dealing damage between his slower attacks. For this fight, you're strongly incentivized to use the Unbounded Counter, a move that allows you to parry crimson attacks. But since we don't have that, we have to be a little more careful. Fushi's Blade Arm Slam can one-shot you, so we make sure to dash through him. If you don't unbound counter this move, it leaves a pool of fire on the ground, which limits our movement. Fortunately, since we have a good amount of aerial options, it's not too hard to deal with. Overall, it's not too difficult, but there are a lot of situations you'll have to be careful in. Though you might notice we've been hanging around the left side of the arena, and that's for good reason. As Phase 2 starts, we hug the left wall as much as we can. Nuwa will join the fight, and the two bosses now have combination moves that become a lot harder to deal with. But we're just gonna keep hugging the left wall instead, and now the two are completely unable to attack us. You see, enemies and bosses have so-called sensors used to decide things like whether they're close enough to attack the player or if they should approach first. In phase 1, this is just a large box leading in front of Fushi, but as Nua joins, it swaps to one static large box covering the entire room, presumably because they are designed to be able to start their combo moves from anywhere. But this sensor doesn't actually perfectly cover the entire room, and on the left there's a slight gap between the sensor and the wall that we can stay in. Here the duo will never detect us as being in attack range, and Fushi is stuck approaching. Although we have to be careful of one thing, and that's if we get too much momentum to the left. To avoid clipping, the game slightly moves you back when you have momentum into a wall, and the momentum of the complete last hit of a triple slash or talisman dash pushes you back far enough to hit the sensor, so we just do the triple slash combo, cancelling the last hit with a jump and then a skull kick on repeat, which is one of our best damage options anyway. This not only makes the fight significantly easier, but with our current moveset, it's also faster. Yet, despite having basically 100% uptime on one of our best damage options, it still takes well over a minute to get through phase 2. Just like G, it's possible to skip the post-fight cutscene by pausing and exiting when the game saves right before the cutscene triggers. This time, however, the menu storage isn't nearly as important, and you might choose to time the pause normally. That's because we actually have control over when the save and the cutscene start in this case. If you hit Fushi after he dies, that will instantly trigger that save and cutscene event. So in G's case, we'd otherwise have to wait for the exact moment to press the button with somewhat vague visual references. But in Fushi's case, we're only trying to delay the pause by a consistent amount after starting our slash, and that's significantly easier to do. It also helps that we're always in the same spot on the left because of the phase 2 cheese, so there's no surprises. Then once we load back in, we can get the soul seal, which unlocks the chest containing the Tianhe serum, the last component we need to open the area that unlocks the final boss. Another save and quit allows us to avoid another small dialogue, then we make our way back to the last root node to return to the main hub, where after some cutscenes, our two boss items are combined into the Super Mutant Buster. Finally, we fast travel back to the root node we just came from and head towards the bottom left. This area is blocked by a wall of mutated flesh, which we can now break down by using our talisman on the eye-shaped mutant attached to it. A small optimization for this is to quickly grab ledge storage to dash, vault, dash, talisman to avoid having to touch the ground and wait on the enemy to attack first. Here we find the elevator pass, which lets us take the elevator down to the research center. We make our way down to the right side, breaking down 2 mutant walls to get to the central room. This central room is the entire reason we had to obtain the Super Mutant Buster. Here there are multiple of the mutant eyes holding up the broken elevator, which we aim to drop onto the floor below to break through to the otherwise inaccessible lowest level of the research center. Without the Super Mutant Buster, we can't drop the elevator, and the lower area is a hard requirement to get to the final boss. If in the future technology is discovered that allows you to clip or teleport down there, this run would look entirely different. But for now, that doesn't seem possible. To get through this area optimally, we have to get creative. We take out the first of 3 mutant eyes and lure over the flying robot to the right. We wait for the robot to attack and move so as to drag it closer towards the top right ledge. With the robot in the right place, we jump up and skull kick off of him, then dash to the left so that we can talisman back to the right and tag the robot with it. A successful talisman means our skull kick is reset, where normally you can only do it once in the air, we now get another. This gives us just enough height to then dash to the right side ledge. Now we can do a precise dash back off the ledge, jump, talisman, and dash to reach this platform and take out the second mutant eye, before dropping down and destroying the last mutant eye, which drops the broken elevator and opens the way. Now we can speed through the lower level, and as we reach the bottom passage, we pick up ledge storage, as this is another part clearly designed around the double jump. Over to the far right, we use it to perform a parry hover into wall cling, which we can jump and slash out of for even more height than we had with the slash vault. This is called a spider leap. And this part is tricky, as getting the hover wall cling means doing it in the early part of your jump where Yi is not affected by gravity, yet we need to cling high enough so that we can actually make the jump. Moving on, we get ledge storage again, and as we cross this fire trap, we could do another spider leap, but it's slightly easier to jump out of a wall slide. Here we find Eigong's Soulscape. By entering this, we open the way towards the final boss, who will be located at the very top of New Kunlun. We can't fast travel back now though, and the game does not make this journey easy. As we backtrack, we're forced into this hallway section. Here you're ambushed by loads of enemies as the screen slowly pans towards the left in dramatic fashion. This is already tricky as it's easy to start getting overwhelmed, yet we're doing this endgame section with very early game stats. This part of the run is tough, mainly because we never get the tools that help with crowd control. It's a pain to manage all the enemies as they tend to stack or go off screen. You can't even see your health. But with enough practice, it is doable and consistent. We leave the last few enemies alive as it's important that we actually die up here, but only once the screen has stopped scrolling and the path opens. The game remembers that you cleared the hallway, but it doesn't make a true save, so if we die here, we're put back outside of Eigong's soulscape. The reason we needed the hallway cleared was so that we can take ledge storage through it, and the only place to get it is near the soulscape. Keeping ledge storage through the hallway fight is actually possible and done in other categories, though it's not very realistic with our tools. But even without doing that, it's not simple. There's no easy ledge to get storage off at this point. What we have to do is lure over this tall mutant specifically. Once he's almost below this gap in the ceiling, we wait for him to attack. He raises his arms above his head, and if we jump off and air parry at the very peak of this attack, we get the maximum possible height. We then talisman dash to stall in the air. The big mutant raises his arms back up, which is high enough to skull kick off of him, followed by a quick slash, which is then just barely enough height that we can cancel with a dash and grab the ledge above. This trick is easily the most precise in the run, and while most of the run is usually played at a capped frame rate of 60 FPS, this is slightly more lenient on high frame rates, so runners usually uncap their FPS just for this trick. Up here, we wait for the enemies to group together, activate ledge storage, and precisely drift and dash through the enemies so as to not get hit and lose that storage. We needed to do this because the way back up is too high to scale without the double jump, and we can now vault up there using our ledge storage. Up ahead is another fight section, but we can actually avoid ever triggering it as we jump onto this platform by using a slash to ever so slightly gain more height. Then we dash and talisman over the fight trigger entirely. At the top is the final fight section, which we cannot skip with our current moves. This one is a bit tricky as the big spider-like enemy has a ton of health and large hitboxes. Then this sword enemy shows up with really fast attacks. This guy is probably the biggest reason we even picked up the Stasis Jade early on. On main bosses, it might only increase the stun by 0.05 seconds, but on regular enemies, it adds 0.8 seconds. Without it, you get way fewer opportunities to punish this guy's attacks. It's not too uncommon for runners to die in this fight, but now we're in the home stretch. We've still been gaining skill points which we can now spend. We use this root node instead of the one right before the final boss because this one has a slightly shorter animation, and we choose to unlock the Backlash ability. This significantly increases the damage from parrying green attacks with a Tai Chi or Skull Kick, from 60 damage all the way up to 160, and this will be very relevant. Now we backtrack and reach the new Kunlun control hub, where the final boss awaits. The final battle against Eigong. The hardest fight, yet even harder in a speedrun. Eigong tests you on everything you've learned through your journey, including your moveset. A moveset that we haven't exactly completed in this run. The biggest factor being that we lack the unbounded counter, as Eigong has a lot of hard-hitting crimson attacks that cannot be parried without it. She'll keep up the pressure and only give you room to retaliate once you get closely familiar with her moves, but fortunately her individual hits aren't as strong as Fushi. This fight is all about knowing what attacks you can punish and how to do so safely. Her regular slash attacks can be chained in various different ways. Her sweeping strike past you can often be punished with a talisman, assuming she doesn't follow it up with a dash away. Her triple stabs are a similar story and can often be punished. However, if she does another triple stab right after, you'll have to cancel your talisman or get hit. Though if you manage to talisman from high up enough so you're above the first hit of the triple stab during your talisman, you can then parry the other two hits. Her downwards Crimson Slash is followed by the Sheathing attack that does 3 hits on a delay. If we dodge the Crimson Slash by following her with a talisman, we can get out of the delayed hits range and turn this into a big damage window. We can also choose to parry the hits normally if we need cheat charges. Her own talisman attack is actually great for us, as this is a green attack that, thanks to our new Backlash skill, now does big damage to her if we Tai Chi or Skull Kick it. Finally, her Crimson Slam Dunk is her most threatening move, as it's clearly designed for the unbounded counter. The hitbox lasts long enough that we can't just use the dash invincibility frames. Instead, we get close to her, making sure to not have her turn around. Then right before she dunks, we dash through her. But if you have chi charges, you can actually talisman her before she comes down and use that talisman dash to get out of the way. Be warned that this move does massive damage, and if you aren't full health, it will likely kill. But assuming she does it while you have chi charges, you can turn the tables. With good damage, you get through this in under 2 minutes, but that's just phase 1. Phase 2 is a large jump in difficulty. Eigong gets new moves and combo options, making the fight even more dynamic. She starts off by charging up and releasing a ranged Crimson Slash, followed by 2 ranged regular slashes and another ranged Crimson Slash. The next time she does this attack, she finishes with her Sheathing Slash instead. This alternates each time she uses this move, but either one can be punished with your talisman. Her own talisman attack can now lead into her juggling you into the air before throwing out a mix-up that can either be a delayed slash or a double dunk. The delayed slash can be jumped and dashed through pretty easily and then punished with a talisman, and handling the double dunk is similar to handling a single one, though you need to be mindful of the first dunk's lingering hitbox. Meanwhile, her downward slash is no longer a guaranteed punish window. She won't always do the sheathing attack and will often dash away instead. Finally, her regular slash attacks are now riskier to punish, as her dashes leave flames on the ground that will quickly chip at your health if you take this gamble. And your health is a precious resource in a fight this long, especially when it doesn't take much damage to be put in range of her stronger moves. With our low damage output, Phase 2 having 50% more health, and only 1 shot to make it count in a full speedrun, this is a true test of skill. That's time. The current world record of 9 souls any percent restricted stands at 1 hour, 6 minutes, and 29 seconds by Pochi LGA, while the any percent unrestricted record, which plays the game in story mode, sits at 54 minutes and 6 seconds by Suntzu. Like I said, 9 souls is intense, and I love it. Thank you for watching. For those willing to stick around, here's a few final notes. The speedrun is done on the Speedrun patch, an older version of the game specifically made available so speedrunners can keep using the glitches it had. And when I said that most of the run is played on a capped 60 FPS, that's because the locked 60 FPS makes for consistently high jumps and long dashes, while uncapped frame rates can be a little worse in those regards. Low gravity is also a lot easier on a capped 60 FPS. Finally, the run didn't actually start from a completely new game. 9 Souls has a pretty lengthy intro sequence with limited control, so it's allowed to be skipped for the sake of keeping the speedrun more enjoyable, but the time it would take is added on to runs on the leaderboard. Now, a huge thanks to the 9 Souls speedrunning community for being so helpful both in explanations and checking for mistakes. If you're interested in speedrunning the game, I'm sure they'd love to have you around. And as always, a massive thank you to my Patreons. Making high-effort, long projects like these isn't close to sustainable on its own. Even with Patreon, I'm not there yet, but it does help a ton. Link in the description if you'd like to support me there and get access to behind-the-scenes content and more. And of course, you'll get shouted out at the end of videos, like this. Thank you to Crixium, A Centaur, Game Guy SD, Christopher R, Ben B, Sphinx Sarah Shinks, Destima, Zinky, Cody A, Johnny F, Big Bowrance, Ellie Worm Emoji, Amanda R, Rasmus L, Dory, and Pito. Okay, for those making it until the very end, here's an update from me. I'll just say that I think I'm doing better. I'm still far from consistent, but when the last video took me several years to get done, this is a big improvement. I did myself a couple favors by going for a shorter video with a narrower scope, though I do still really love more narrative-driven, extra long videos. In the end, I'm just looking to strike a balance that's more manageable, so we'll see where that goes. Not sure how to wrap this up nicely, so again, just a massive thank you for bearing with me. Later.